The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that smelled of citrus and old books. I stepped inside, the worn wooden floorboards creaking beneath my feet. The scent was oddly comforting, a strange mixture of fresh lemons and the mustiness of forgotten stories. I had always found solace in the smell of aged pages, but today it did little to ease the knot tightening in my stomach. "Come in, come in." The landlady's voice, warm and inviting, echoed from the depths of her apartment. I took a cautious step forward, my heart racing as I crossed the threshold into her domain. Mrs. Whitaker was a woman of indeterminate age, with a cascade of silver hair that fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She stood in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she busied herself with a small pot on the stove. As the steam curled into the air, it mingled with the citrus scent, creating an oddly intoxicating aroma. I approached her, clutching the envelope in my trembling hands. "I came to pay this month's rent," I said, my voice a whisper against the backdrop of her humming. She turned, her eyes narrowing slightly as they caught the flicker of anxiety in my gaze. "You look nervous." "Should I be?" The question hung between us, heavy and charged. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her penetrating gaze. Mrs. Whitaker had an uncanny ability to see through pretense, her eyes a deep shade of green that seemed to pierce right through me. "No," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. It's been a long month." She stepped closer, the warmth of her presence enveloping me. "Long months can do that to a person," she said, her voice softer now. "But don't worry, you're safe here." I nodded, though the words did little to ease the tension coiling in my chest. I could feel her watching me with an intensity that made my hands shake. I forced myself to look down at the envelope, my fingers trembling as I counted the bills inside. 600, I muttered to myself, trying to anchor my thoughts in the mundane task of paying rent. I could feel her eyes on me, though, and it only made my heart race faster. "Do you always count your rent in front of the landlord?" she asked, a teasing lilt in her voice. I chuckled nervously, but the sound fell flat. "I guess I want to make sure I have enough. It's been a tight month." Mrs. Whitaker stepped closer, her fingers brushing against my arm as she leaned in to peer at the bills. "You're doing fine," she said, her voice low. "It's just money. It doesn't define you." The warmth of her touch sent a jolt through me, and I quickly pulled my arm away, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "Right?" I said, forcing a smile. "Just money." She tilted her head, a knowing smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You know, it's important to take care of yourself, too. You're more than your rent payments." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard, and I found myself wanting to confide in her. "I've just been stressed," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Work has been difficult, and I'm worried about making ends meet." Mrs. Whitaker regarded me thoughtfully, her expression softening. "Sometimes, sharing a burden can lighten the load. I've been around long enough to know that life throws curveballs when you least expect it." She stepped back, creating a small space between us, allowing me to breathe again. I took a deep breath, grateful for the reprieve. "Thank you for understanding," I said, my voice steadying. "Of course, dear. We all have our struggles," she replied, her gaze drifting toward the window. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating the dust motes swirling in the air. "But let's focus on the present. How about some tea?" The invitation caught me off guard, but the thought of a warm cup in my hands was appealing. "Sure, that sounds nice," I said, feeling a small flicker of relief. Mrs. Whitaker moved gracefully to the kitchen, her presence radiating a calm energy that made me feel at ease. She poured hot water into a delicate teapot, the steam curling like tendrils of comfort. "I have a lovely chamomile blend," she said, her voice ringing with enthusiasm. "It's perfect for winding down." As she prepared the tea, I took a moment to collect myself. I could still feel her gaze on me, an electric current humming in the air. "You really don't mind if I'm late with rent this month?" I asked, the words spilling out before I could stop them. She turned, a slight smile creeping across her lips. "I don't mind, but you should be mindful of your finances. It's easy to lose track." "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't want to let you down." Her eyes softened further, and she stepped closer once more. "You could never let me down, dear. Life has its ups and downs, but we'll navigate them together." I felt something shift in the air between us, a connection that was both comforting and unsettling. I could sense her empathy, but there was an undercurrent of something else, something unspoken that made my heart race. As she poured the tea, I watched her hands move with a practiced grace, the way her fingers curled around the delicate handle of the teapot. "Tell me about your work," she said, setting a steaming cup in front of me. I took a sip, the warmth spreading through me. "I work at a small marketing firm," I said, my voice gaining strength. "It's just been tough lately. We lost a big client, and now everyone's on edge." Mrs. Whitaker nodded, her expression sympathetic. "That sounds challenging, but you're resilient. I can see that." The compliment made my heart swell, and I couldn't help but smile. "I'm trying," I admitted. "Sometimes it just feels overwhelming." "That's perfectly normal," she assured me, her gaze steady. "But don't forget to take care of yourself. You have to make time for joy, even in the chaos." I nodded, absorbing her words. "Thank you," I said, my voice sincere. "I really appreciate that." She stepped back, giving me space as she leaned against the kitchen counter. "You're a good tenant, but I want to make sure you're okay. It's important to me." "I am," I said, though the weight of my worries hung over me like a shroud. "Are you really?" she pressed, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Or are you just saying that to reassure me?" Her question pierced through the facade I had built, and I felt a wave of vulnerability crash over me. "I've been trying to put on a brave face," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But there are days when I just don't know how to keep going." Mrs. Whitaker stepped closer again, her presence grounding me. "It's okay to feel that way. Just remember that you're not alone." I looked up at her, the warmth in her eyes igniting something deep within me. "Thank you for being here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It means a lot." She smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made my heart flutter. "It's my pleasure. We all need someone who cares." As we continued to talk, I found myself opening up, sharing stories from my life that I hadn't told anyone before. Mrs. Whitaker listened intently, her eyes never leaving mine, and I felt a connection building between us, one that transcended the typical landlord-tenant relationship. Yet, beneath the surface of our conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. The way she watched me, the intensity of her gaze, it was as if she could see right through my facade and into the depths of my soul. As I finished my tea, I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a rare moment of peace amid the chaos of my life. "I really needed this," I said, my voice steady. "Thank you." Mrs. Whitaker smiled, a knowing glint in her eye. "You're welcome, dear. Just remember, it's okay to lean on others when you need support." I nodded, her words resonating deeply within me. "I will," I promised, feeling a renewed sense of hope. As I stood to leave, I hesitated, glancing back at her. "You've been so kind to me, Mrs. Whitaker. I really appreciate it." She stepped closer, her presence radiating warmth and understanding. "It's my pleasure. Just remember, you're never alone in this." I smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude that was difficult to articulate. "I'll keep that in mind." As I left her apartment, the citrus and old book scent lingered in my mind, a reminder of the unexpected connection we had forged. I stepped back into the hallway, the weight of my worries feeling just a little lighter. But as I closed the door behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that our encounter had changed something within me. There was a depth to Mrs. Whitaker that I hadn't fully understood, an unspoken bond that tethered us together in a world that often felt isolating. I walked down the dim hallway, the smell of citrus and old books still swirling in my mind, and I couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope, a tiny spark of possibility igniting in the darkness. Perhaps, just perhaps, I could find a way to navigate the challenges ahead, one step at a time with the support of those who cared. And as I stepped back into the world outside, I knew I wasn't alone.